welcome to Simpler Bible, a daily journey to biblical understanding. As we finish up Proverbs today, I know doing it really quickly in two lessons for episode 125, one of the things that we want to look at is kind of there's just some general things that Solomon is discussing here that he's going to be really repetitious about for chapters 10 through 31. And we're going to meet a couple of players. We're going to meet a fool, we're going to meet a sluggard, and then the counterpart to the fool and the sluggard are the person who's wise and the person who is diligent. And so these guys are probably, like the wise and the diligent one is probably one person, and the fool and the sluggard is probably one person. But there's a lot of really cool wisdom in this, a lot of things to consider. That's the title. And let's dive in, beginning today in Proverbs 15. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise commends knowledge, but the mouth of the fool pours out folly. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch over the evil and the good. A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. So a couple of things that the Proverbs talk about a lot are the way that the wise person speaks versus the way that the fool speaks. And so the wise person spreads knowledge, the wise person spreads wisdom, the fool spreads perverseness. It says here that the perverse tongue breaks the spirit, the gentle tongue is a tree of life. There's another place that it says that the fool, his words are like flaming arrows that he's launching at his neighbor's house. And then when he's confronted on it, he goes, "Oh, I was only joking. It was only a joke." And that's how the fool handles their language. And the Bible says, even in the Proverbs, it says that the fool gives full vent to his tongue, to whatever's in his mouth, he says. But the wise man quietly holds his back or restrains his. And so there's this contrast between the wise person and the foolish person. And the Bible says, I want to say it's in Proverbs 10, maybe verse 19. I'll double check that. But it says that where there are many words, sin is not absent. And so the idea is that the fool just keeps stammering and stammering and stammering, and eventually it's going to be problematic for them. But the wise person restrains their tongue. It says this, a fool despises his father's instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent. Those who receive correction are prudent. In the house of the righteous there is much treasure, but trouble befalls the income of the wicked. In the house of the righteous there's much treasure, but trouble befalls the income of the wicked. This idea being that the wise are wise even in their finances, but the fool is not, and they're frivolous. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, not so the heart of fools. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is acceptable to him. This might make us think of Isaiah 1 or Amos 5, where God says, "I hate your assemblies, I hate your festivals, I hate these songs, I hate these offerings because they were offered from an unrighteous heart." And so God is concerned with the heart. It might even make you think a little bit of Genesis 4, Cain and Abel, and how Abel's offering was pleasing to God, but Cain's was not. The way of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but he loves him who pursues righteousness. There is severe discipline for him who forsakes the way. Whoever hates reproof will die. Whoever hates correction will die. And so what does it say? Let's go back up here. A fool despises his father's instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent. So if you hate reproof, you'll die. If you accept correction, you'll live, right? Sheol and Abaddon, these are amounting to the grave, lie open before the Lord. How much more the hearts of the children of man? A scoffer does not like to be reproved. He will not go to the wise. So here's this reproof again. A scoffer does not like to be reproved. A glad heart makes a cheerful face, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is crushed. The heart of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouth of fools feeds only on folly. We talked about this in the first couple of chapters of Proverbs, Proverbs 1 through 9, that the wise person is seeking wisdom, but the fool is not. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but the cheerful of heart has a continual feast. Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. This idea occurs a couple of places in Proverbs, not very many, about 3 places. Better is a dinner of herbs or herbs where love is than a fattened ox and hatred with it. So, the old saying, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. The idea is, hey, there's 2 birds in the bush, but you've got 1 in the hand already. So this is more valuable than the 2 that you don't have, right? And so here he's saying having a little bit, but fearing the Lord is better than having a great feast, but trouble with it. Having a dinner of vegetables is way better if there's love there than having a fattened calf where there's hatred. A hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger quiets contention. Surround yourself with people who are slow to anger, and because they quiet contention. The way of the sluggard is like a hedge of thorn, but the upright is a level highway. So this is a really interesting imagery. I don't know if you've thought about this, but the sluggard, his path is like thorns because he doesn't walk over it. He doesn't travel over it. But the path of the upright is a level highway. All you need to do is go out into your backyard here and find a big red ant colony, and you'll be able to see their paths that they have all over your yard. And these little tiny ants with their little tiny feet going over these pathways over and over and over again have scarred through the grass to cut into the dirt and made these pathways. Why? Because they're diligent, but the sluggard, it's grown over with thorns, it's grown over with brambles. And so the idea here is the person who is sluggard, the person who is lazy, the person who is not diligent, their path is hard, it's covered with thorns. But the diligent person, the person who is upright, their path is smoother because they're doing the work. I cannot tell you the number of times in 29 years of ministry I've had people say to me something along the lines of, I don't know why life is so hard right now. And I go, well, look at all the things you've done that have led to this point. Like, it's hard because you've made it hard. And sometimes life, I'll just say it this way, life is easier when you put in the work. It doesn't mean that it's easy. It just means that it's easier. And so I'm a year away from being 50, and I'm thinking, man, I still want to be able to take stairs when I'm 80. And so I am exercising now with that in mind so that I can make a pathway, right? So the path of the upright is a level highway, but the way of the sluggard is a hedge of thorns. A wise son makes his father glad, but a foolish man despises his mother. Folly, foolishness, is joy to him who lacks sense, but a man of understanding walks straight ahead. Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. This is beautiful wisdom. Have a lot of counselors in your life, people who can lead you in wise decisions. To make an apt answer is a joy to a man, and a word in season how good it is. The path of life leads upward for the prudent, that he may turn away from the grave beneath. The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but maintains the widow's boundaries. The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but gracious words are pure. Whoever is greedy for unjust gain troubles his own household, but he who hates bribes will live. The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. Again, the person who is righteous and wise restrains their tongue and thinks about how to speak. This should make you think of James chapter 1, where it talks about everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, for man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoice the heart, and good news refreshes the bones. The ear that listens to life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise. Whoever ignores instruction despises himself, but he who listens to reproof gains intelligence. The fear of the Lord is instruction and wisdom, and humility comes before honor. Now, let's jump to chapter 26 of the Proverbs here. Like snow in summer or rain in harvest, honor is not fitting for a fool. You don't want snow in summer. You don't want rain during the harvest time. And honor does not befit a fool. Like a sparrow in its flitting, like a swallow in its flying, is a causeless curse that does not alight. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the back of fools. Now, this next part is really interesting, and verses 4 and 5 are sad and funny at the same time. Do not answer a fool according to his foolishness, lest you be like him yourself. In other words, if you're going to a fool and you're trying to correct him in his foolishness, you're going to look like a fool. But then it says, answer a fool according to his foolishness, lest he be wise in his own eyes. So darned if you do, darned if you don't, right? And so if you go and you correct the fool in his folly, you're going to look like a fool because you're talking to a fool and the fool won't listen. But if you don't correct the fool in his folly, then he's going to think he's wise and he's going to think he's doing the right thing. You can't win with a fool, all right? Whoever sends a message by the hand of a fool cuts off his own feet and drinks violence. The imagery here is outstanding. You've given a message to a fool to convey to someone else, and it's like cutting off your own feet and drinking violence. It's not going to go very well. Like a lame man's legs, which hang useless, is the proverb in the mouth of a fool. Like one who binds the stone in the sling is one who gives honor to a fool. So you got your sling, you've got your stone, you're facing off Goliath, but you tied the rock into the sling so that when you go to fling it, it doesn't come out. He goes, that's what it's like to give honor to a fool. Like a thorn that goes all the way into the hand of a drunk man is the proverb in the mouth of the fool. Like an archer who wounds everyone is one who hires a passing fool or a drunkard. Can you imagine some random like archer just going around and it's like, that's what it's like to work with a fool. Like a dog that returns to its own vomit is a fool who repeats his folly. Now, how bad is the fool, right? Really bad. Do you see a man who is wise in his own eyes? There's more hope than a fool than for him. Verse 12 is the punch of this section. Look how bad a fool is. Look how ridiculous it is to be a fool. Look at how ridiculous it is to depend upon a fool. Look how wicked fools are. And he goes, but do you see a man who's wise in his own eyes? There's more hope for a fool than that guy. So it is worse than being a fool if you're puffed up in your own eyes and you believe that you're wise in your own eyes. The sluggard says, there is a lion in the road. There's a lion in the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so does a sluggard on his bed. The sluggard buries his hand in his dish and it wears him out to bring it back to his mouth. So here's the lazy person, right? Oh, there's a lion in the road. There's a lion in the street. I can't go to work today. Like a door that turns on his hinges, he turns on his bed all morning and he's so lazy that he puts his hand in the dish to get some food and can't even bring it back to his mouth. It's too much work. Right? The sluggard is wiser. Now listen, the sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly. So put all this together. The fool is hopeless, right? But a man who is wise in his own eyes is worse than a fool. And the sluggard is wise in his own eyes. So who's worse than a fool? A sluggard, the person who doesn't do anything with his life. Verse 17, whoever meddles in a quarrel not his own is like one who takes a passing dog by the ears. I have thoughts about that verse that I won't share right now, but ask me about that sometime. Like a madman who throws firebrands and arrows and death is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I'm only joking. I talked about that a moment ago. For lack of wood, the fire goes out. Where there are no whispers, quarreling ceases. This is again about controlling the tongue. As charcoal to hot embers and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. So if you know somebody who is particularly quarrelsome, they kindle strife, and that's not the kind of people we want to be. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. Like the glaze covering an earthen vessel are fervent lips with an evil heart. So like a beautiful glaze, if you've ever observed any kind of pottery, a beautiful glaze over just clay are fervent lips with an evil heart. So somebody who gives you lip service, but their heart's not in it. And so that's a little bit like what Jesus says when he says to the Pharisees, he says, these men, they honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. And so it doesn't have any value. There's no value to it. Whoever hates disguises himself with his lips and harbors deceit in his heart. So a hateful person is going to sound like they love you, but their heart, they really hate you. When he speaks graciously, don't believe him, for there are 7 wicked abominations in his heart. Though his hatred be covered with deception, his wickedness will eventually be exposed in the assembly. So watch out for the people who are nice with their lips, but wicked in their heart. Eventually it will be exposed. Whoever digs a pit falls into it, and a stone will roll back on the one who starts it rolling. A lying tongue hates its victims, and a flattering mouth works ruins. Man, there is so much here. We couldn't possibly cover it all. I love some stuff in the next chapter of Proverbs 27. There's a lot of wisdom. There really is. You know what? Maybe sometime in the next year and a half, I need to just preach through Proverbs at the 456, and then you can have all these sermons together. That wouldn't be a bad idea. But the idea here is be diligent, be wise. Do not be the fool. Don't be the one who gives full vent to his spirit. Restrain your tongue. Seek to build people up. Don't be a sluggard. Be diligent with your days. Work hard at the things before you. And this is just wisdom. This is practical wisdom to live by. These are good things, and they're not necessarily Jesus things. This is just good practical advice about how to make the most of this life that we live in. Wisdom comes to us from God, chapters 1 through 9, and then here are some practical applications to these wisdoms, or these evidences of wisdom. Now, tomorrow, let me see where we're going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to be in Ecclesiastes. It's 12 chapters long, but we're going to do the entire book in a day because I had to cut some places so that we could save room for some things in the future. So read ahead. Go ahead and read Ecclesiastes. It's not a super long book, and I will see you next time for episode 126. Thank you so much for journeying with us today at Simpler Bible through another section of Scripture where we come to know and understand God a little bit better. Look, if you're brand new to Simpler Bible, we have all sorts of resources available for you. Go to our website, simplerbible.com, and there you can find these videos, you can find our podcast, you can find links to our social media, and you can even find a blog post with additional scriptures if you want to go into a little bit more study than we had time to cover in this podcast and video today. We hope that this tool will be exactly that for you, a tool. Not something that replaces your daily walk with God, but something that enhances your daily walk with God and helps you to know and enjoy Him more. Thank you so much for being part of this, and we'll see you again tomorrow.